Hey Internet, this is Lizzie, aka Firebrand Phlox, and I'm coming at you with a guideline intro to working with EVA foam to create armor props and costumes. Now, I'm calling this a guideline and not a tutorial because I'm just covering the basic materials you're going to need, and this is going to be a fairly in-depth guide, which will go over where you can find things and how much they're going to cost you, so that way you have a really good idea of what you need to get started. Now, when you're working with EVA foam, there's a whole bunch of different methods you can do. So this is a pretty good even coverage of your bases, and this will get you started no matter what method you decide to use. I highly recommend you just watch a bunch of different tutorials, read a bunch of different tutorials, and figure out a method that sounds like it'll work for you. Try a couple different methods before you really decide what you want to stick with. That way you get some experimentation done before you actually start your costume or your project or whatever. But these guidelines will basically get you started and get you set up with the materials you're going to need in order to start working on making those costumes. So I have made two big full-scale costumes using EVA foam. The first is an Iron Man suit that I made using the Pepakura method. You can Google that and find tons of videos explaining how to make armor using software and templates that I'll print off, and then you just transfer those to foam. Really easy. Lots of smaller pieces, so your seams are going to be a bit more visible, especially if you're like me and you're not super skilled at getting really invisible seams. So I recommend that if you are really patient or are just getting started and have no idea how to do anything, because it'll at least help you make your templates and get you started. My second costume that I made is Volibear from League of Legends, and I made the whole suit using templates that I handmade, so I don't have major visible seams or anything, because I made templates and shaped the foam as I needed to instead of relying on the little pieces of Pepakura. Now, it doesn't really matter what method you do, but the first step of making foam armor is going to be templating. So if you're doing Pepakura, your templating job's already done. You just need to get the software, get files, make your own files, and then print off the guidelines. And you can use regular paper for those. I recommend cardstock, so go to Staples, get yourself a ream of cardstock. I don't even know how much it is, like 10 bucks, 15 maybe, I'm not sure. That could be totally off. Don't hold me to that. I haven't used Pepakura in over a year, so I really am not the person to talk to about that, but I know the basics of it. The second method involves making your own templates, so I know a lot of people like to make them just by using cellophane and masking or duct tape. And those are useful for really form-fitting pieces. So if you're making a forearm piece, you basically just coat your forearm in cellophane plastic wrap. You can get it for a couple bucks at grocery stores. And then you just coat the whole thing in duct tape, draw your pattern on, and then snip it off, cut it up, and transfer those templates to foam. I don't like it as much as the method I use, usually because I need my pieces to be a bit thicker in order to accommodate for wiring and other electronics. So I usually make my templates by using paper. I just have these nice rolls of paper. I got a 3-pack for 10 bucks at a Walmart in the birthday area, in the party section. 3-pack, 10 bucks, labeled as banner paper. And what I do is I use my duct tape dummy, and I just unravel a piece, kind of put it where it's going to go, tape it into place using some masking tape, cut it up, draw my patterns and templates on it, and then just cut up all those pieces. So it's a little bit harder to do with only one person, because you need to hold it in place with tape, and you really need a duct tape dummy to do that. Especially if you're working on arms, because you can't have one hand trying to hold everything in place and then draw on the other. It's usually easier to make yourself a duct tape dummy. Making one of these will cost you 30 bucks. So be prepared for the investment of that. There's tons of video tutorials and written out tutorials telling you how to do that. All you need is duct tape, PVC, piping if you want to make it stand up like mine is, and filling. So I used old newspapers, $30 probably, depending on how big you are and how many rolls of duct tape you need. So duct tape dummy is useful to have. I highly recommend having one if you're making your own templates. I didn't have one for Iron Man because I was just measuring and putting in the numbers to Pepakura, so much more of a necessity if you're making your own templates physically. Now, the most important thing you're going to need if you're making armor out of EVA foam is the foam itself. This is a big roll of craft foam. I got at Michael's, $8, a little over 10 square feet in area. And I used this kind of foam when I made Volibear. So I used about 3.5 rolls. Good stuff, nice and thin, easy to transport, and was easily reinforced with gauze and glue for backing. So good stuff. I highly recommend it for beginners because it's a lot easier to work with. The only problem is that it's really, really thin. So if you're working on larger pieces, you're going to need to back them up and reinforce them either by putting 2 layers of the foam down or backing them with gauze and glue. And I'll cover how to do that in a later tutorial because you don't need to know how to back it for now. You just need the basics to get you started on construction. Now, the other foam I've used is this thicker EVA foam. This is a big piece, puzzle piece of flooring foam. You can find this sort of thing at Home Depot, and I've heard you can find it at auto parts stores. It's the kind of flooring you would use for a workspace or like a workshop. So it comes in big puzzle piece mats, pretty thick, significantly thicker than the other stuff. You can get a pack that has 4 of these big squares for about $20. So that's about 16 square feet or so of foam usage. Good stuff. If you're going for the thicker foam, you can find that, as I said, at Home Depot. It's in the flooring with the foam and rubber mats, usually by the welcome mats, so ask a sales associate to help you find those. And then the craft foam you can find in craft stores like Michael's and Hobby Lobby. It's usually in the kids section, like where they have all the colorful kids crafts. They'll have a bunch of foam. I've only seen the rolls at Michael's, but I've seen thinner, smaller sheets of it at Michael's and Joann's, and I imagine Hobby Lobby has it too if you're inclined to shop there. So you can find foam, the thinner craft foam in kids section, thicker stuff at a hardware store or online. Never underestimate what you can find online, especially on Amazon. So make sure you're looking there if you're looking for a specific thickness or if you want to try a roll of thicker foam. For cutting the foam, if you're working with the thinner craft foam stuff and you're just trying out some different methods, you can use a pair of scissors. I wouldn't recommend doing a ton of foam cutting with them, but it's useful to have scissors around for cutting out your templates. So get a pair of scissors for a couple bucks anywhere, basically. You can get them at Walgreens, grocery stores, hardware stores, whatever. Just buy a cheap pair of decent scissors. And then to cut out your foam, you're going to need some kind of knife. I know a lot of people like hobby knives. I prefer a contractor's knife. I like that it's a little bit thicker, gives me more control over it, doesn't hurt my hand as much as holding the thin X-Acto knives for a long period of time. Decent blade. Mine is like a nicer knife, so it's got a rubber grip and this curve in it, which allows you to do ergonomic cutting. So very useful. The knife itself was like $10 at a Home Depot. It was over by the Power Tools There's like nice little wall display with contractor knives. So if you're inclined to do that, I highly recommend getting a contractor's knife. And if you're getting one of these, get one like this. This is a DeWalt brand. Very nice. Don't get the cheap ones that change out the blade with a screw inside, because those are a pain and they break really easily. Mine just has a little button that you hold down and you pull the knife out. And put the blade back in, you hold down the button and you slip the blade back in. So nice, easy, quick change. I highly recommend getting something a little bit nicer that has that quick change feature, because it'll save you a lot of frustration changing out your blades. And the sharper your blade, the cleaner your foam cuts are going to be, so you want to change your blades frequently. Doesn't matter if you're using one of these or an X-Acto knife or whatever, you're going to need to change your blade very, very frequently. So get tons of replacement blades and get something nice. Replacement blades for this, get whatever brand matches the brand of your knife. Don't take risks getting different brands thinking that they might fit if they're standard. Just go for the same brand, save yourself trouble. I bought the 75 pack when I started working on my Iron Man suit. So that was a year and a half ago. I've made 2 full costumes and like done some other smaller things with it. I still have over a third of my blades left. So buy in bulk, get a good set. These were like $7-8 for the replacement pack. So this combined with the knife, less than $20. And they've lasted me over a year and a half of costuming, and are actually the piece of equipment that's lasted the longest. So invest in something nicer so you don't have to keep buying new versions. As you're working with foam and templates, tape's useful to have. As I mentioned, masking tape is good to hold down templates while you're working. And it's good to help hold your pieces of foam together when you're putting them together. Duct tape, also useful for holding down templates or for coating their cellophane. You should always have duct tape on around the house or your workspace or wherever, because you never know when you're going to need it. When in doubt, duck it. As you're cutting, I recommend getting some kind of cutting mat. So this is just an 18 by 12 mat that I got at my school's bookstore for like $8. Really cheap, like plasticky, bendable material. It's nice because it protects the surface I'm cutting on, and I also use it as a base when I'm hot gluing. So because like if hot glue drips on it, as it dries, it's plastic, so it just peels right off, doesn't damage the board itself. I've had this since I started Iron Man. Again, it's lasted multiple costumes, holds the scars of being painted on top of, but it still works really well. Don't invest in a huge one. Get something about this size, because you can just slide the board or slide your foam as you're cutting out the pieces. If you're like cutting out really big pieces, just slide the foam or the board as you cut, so that way you can protect whatever surface you're cutting on. You don't need to buy one of those huge boards, because I know they sell massive cutting boards in the sewing supply section of craft stores, but those are over $100. So get one of these for $10. Use a coupon. Michael's and Joann's have 40% off coupons in their weekly ads. You can find coupons online. I know for a fact that Michael's takes Joann's coupons. I'm not positive if Joann's takes Michael's, but can't hurt to try to use competitor coupons and save yourself some money. So yeah, useful to save yourself money. My money saving tip for today. After you cut out the pieces, you're going to need to connect them. I like to use hot glue. I know some people really like barge cement. I haven't used barge cement. I can't find it around me, so I just haven't tried it. I like my hot glue gun. It works well. It's a dual temperature gun, which is nice. I recommend using the higher setting because... Sorry, my phone just went off. I got a text message. I'll check that later. But I recommend using the higher setting because it will It'll heat up your glue and solidify it at a higher temperature, so it's less likely to fall apart as you're wearing it. Or if you're transporting your costume for like a summer convention or something in a hot car, if you leave your costume in there for too long, the hot glue will melt. So if you use the higher setting on your glue gun, it'll give you a higher melting point. So it'll need to get hotter in order to melt the glue and mess up your costume. So working on the higher temperature is a good idea. This glue gun, 20 bucks at Michael's. Used a coupon, hey! So yeah, it was like 14 or something. If you get in glue gun, you're gonna need tons of glue sticks. So buy yourself as big of a bag as you can find. This is a bag of 40 sticks, standard size. Always get the glue sticks that fit the glue gun you're using, or else the glue sticks will melt and totally mess up your gun and you're gonna have to buy a new one. So as I said, these are a bag of 40, 10 bucks at Michael's. Use a coupon, get them for 6, good deal. When you start off your costume, you can just buy one bag. You're probably going to need 2 or 3 if you're doing like a full suit of armor that covers your whole body. But you can start off with one bag and save your money and then buy another bag when you need it. So you can use a coupon each time you buy a bag. So that's another money saving tip. As you're gluing, I find it's useful to have a smaller glue gun for getting into tight spaces, or if you're working on a smaller piece like this, like my forearm piece for Samus, and you need to like get inside to work on a seam, the smaller glue gun will fit inside much more easily than my bigger one. So small glue guns are useful, not necessary. This is $3 at Dollar General, so cheap investment. Along with working in those tight spaces, I recommend having some kind of little flashlight or headlamp, because those spaces that are hard to see, you can just light up with a flashlight and see those seams that you want to glue along. And I like this guy. It was a $2 keychain flashlight that fell off the keychain, but it's nice and small, so I can put it in my mouth and have both my hands free to work. So get something small that you can either hang above you or put on a headlamp or just stick in your teeth for a couple minutes as you work on it. $2. Again, not necessary, but really useful, especially for when you're gluing on the inside of pieces that you've already looped around. Another thing you're gonna need is a heat gun. Heat guns are really, really useful because they shape your foam and help you make these nice curved pieces that'll fit along your arms, fit over your arms and legs. They also help seal up the foam. So when you go to paint it, it's easier to put whatever sealing material you're using. I'm not going to get a ton into sealing because I'll cover that in a later tutorial. I work where I get everything built and then I worry about sealing and painting and finishing. So there's other videos that it can explain sealing if you're really curious about that for now. But get a heat gun so you can shape your armor, especially if you're just doing pieces that are going to go along the top of your arm or the top of your leg. These will get you just the right curve. You heat it up, you press it against whatever curve you need or whatever. They work great. I didn't have one of these for my first 2 costumes and I really regret it because I had parts that I needed to use a heat gun in order to shape properly, but I used my friend's hairdryer, and while that worked, it was a total pain in the hiney. So don't do that. Be smart, buy a heat gun. They're 20 bucks at Michael's and Joann's, and use a coupon. Use a coupon, save yourself some money, get them for like 14 bucks instead of 20. You can find these in like the wrapping section. This was actually tricky for me to find because at first the sales associate didn't know what I was looking for, and we found it over by the cellophane and like the wrapping in the front of the store. So you can find it in this like cellophane and wrapping, or you can find it near the jewelry sometimes. I feel like Joann's keeps theirs near the jewelry section. So look for those, and if you can't find it, ask a sales associate and tell them it's used for cellophane shrinking, in like shrink wrap. Yeah, that's what it's used for. So ask about that, and they might know where it is. That's usually the problem I encounter, is that sales associates don't know exactly what you're looking for. And when you explain what you're using it for, it just confuses them more. So you state what it's normally used for, and then they'll help you find it easier. And the last thing you need are gloves. When you're working with foam, it's recommended that you work in a well-ventilated area. So to protect your lungs, because sometimes like the melting glue or the adhesives you're using produce noxious fumes. So work in a well-ventilated area and use gloves to protect your hands. Now, this is more important if you're working with hot glue than if you're working with other adhesives, because the hot glue will burn. I've gotten lots of just little burns on my fingers from working on costumes without proper protection, and it's bad. Like, I have so little feeling in my nerve endings now that I want to keep what little I have left. So these are just a cheap pair of latex dipped gloves I got at my Home Depot. It was $5 for 5 pairs. So really, really useful. The latex is just thick enough where it protects me from the hot glue, short of just putting hot glue on my fingers themselves. So they're really useful because I can be holding a piece and, oh, there's like some glue bubbled up along here. Just wipe it off and the glue hardens on the glove. And because it's latex, you can just peel it right off when it dries. So really, really useful. The latex dipped are the best way to go. Don't go with like cotton or leather or anything, because the glue will stick to them and it's going to be really hard to get that glue off. So if you go with latex, as soon as the glue cools, it'll peel right off and you can keep your gloves clean. And really, you only need 1 pair. As I said, I have 5, but I lose things all the time, and it's a way for me to have like 1 set at home, 1 set at school, 1 set in my cosplay kit. I used a pair for Volibear's hand paws. Like, they're useful and can be used as bases for costume pieces if you need. So latex dip gloves, not necessary but highly recommended. Protect your hands. They're useful, and if you're getting these kind of gloves, get ones that are thin and are fairly form-fitting, so you still have all of your dexterity. So, you know, try one of them on in the store if you can, so you make sure it fits your hand well. You should know, like, the general sizing of your hand. I've got big hands, so these are larges, and they fit really well. I can basically do anything with these that I can do with just my bare hands. So get these, protect your fingers, and use them as tools to help you make your costumes and props look really, really nice. So that is all that I have to tell you today. So those are my basics to get you started. As I said, this is what I use for my costuming process, and it's a good basis to get you started on whatever, kind of foam armor tutorial you decide to base your work off of, or for experimenting to start off with. You should be able to find these materials fairly easily. If you don't have easy access to hardware stores or craft stores, you can always find these products online. Pretty easy. Brand really doesn't matter that much. Just get what works best for you and your budget, but you know, don't go super cheap. Get like middle of the road, so that way you have a decent enough product that will last you long enough where it pays for itself, but not so cheap that you need to keep replacing it constantly. Overall, the startup cost is a little pricey. It's going to cost you at least $100, like between $100 and $200, depending on how much foam and how much hot glue you buy to start off with. So it's not super cheap for all of the startup costs. So I recommend just saving up money, if you don't have a hot glue gun, get your hot glue gun, get your knife, get your foam, get a bag of glue sticks. Like, slowly work up the full way to get all of your foam and all of your glue sticks. And just buy the stuff you need to start making the foam armor, because it's probably going to take you a long time to get the hang of working with these materials, and you won't even need to worry about sealing and finishing for probably months. So just pay for the startup costs, as I said, like $100, $200 if you're getting like a really, really nice tools and getting like tons of foam and tons of glue. Like tons of really nice foam and tons of glue. So save yourself money. Don't buy anything you need for sealing or painting, any of that just yet. Start off with the foam, get it all built, and then move on to the next step, and then buy what you need. Save yourself money and do it in reasonable steps, so that way you have money put away and saved up, and don't spend like $500 on cosplay materials up front, like I've done before. So, thank you for sitting through that video and letting me talk at you. I hope that I shared some useful information with you and you have a better idea of what you need in order to start your own costumes and props with foam. If you liked my video, I would appreciate you liking it, commenting, sharing it on social media. That'd all be cool. If you want to see more videos like this as I make them, click that subscribe button and you'll be updated whenever I make tutorials, which will be in the near future. I'll start getting into details on how to make cool armor pieces like this forearm piece that I keep gesturing with, and I'll cover materials that you'll need for other steps in the foam making process. So yeah, I'd appreciate it if you shared the video around and all that jazz. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them down below and I'll check them out and help in any way I can. There's links to my Tumblr in the description, so click on that, check that out if you want to see the stupid things I post or my own costume progress. And thanks a whole lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching, and good luck on your costuming.